A poor single mother takes her son to work, but she never imagined that her baby would hug the millionaire owner of the company and call him Daddy. Erica Carter walked quickly through the busy streets of London, holding tight to Theodore's small hand. The cold morning wind ruffled her brown hair as she adjusted the thin jacket on his body. Winter was coming, and she worried about her son. She couldn't let him get sick, not now. Life had never been easy for Erica. At 28 years old, she had already faced more hardships than many people face in a lifetime. Raising a child alone, without financial or emotional support, was a daily battle. Her eyes carried the weight of sleepless nights and constant worries. She still remembered the day she found out she was pregnant. The shock, the fear, and finally, the disappointment when she realized she would have to face everything alone. Theodore's father, a man who promised the world, disappeared the moment he found out she was pregnant. From then on, Erica had to be strong. She worked as an administrative assistant at Sterling Enterprises, one of the largest financial corporations in London. The salary was low compared to the cost of living in the city, but it was enough to keep a roof over their heads and ensure that Theodore had food on the table. However, the bills seemed to pile up like a storm about to break over her. Every month was a new challenge: rent, childcare, food, and always that fear that something unexpected could make her situation even worse. But Erica didn't complain, at least not in front of Theodore. To him, she was a safe haven, the loving mother who always had a smile on her face even when she was exhausted. The little boy, with his big blue eyes and shaggy blonde hair, was the reason she kept fighting. "Okay, my love, we're almost there," she said, squeezing Theodore's little hand lightly. The boy smiled, unaware of the hardships his mother faced on a daily basis. He was the light in the darkness of Erica's life, the only thing that kept her going when everything seemed lost. There were days when she found herself thinking about what could have been. Before Theodore, Erica had dreams. She dreamed of finishing college, building a career, maybe even traveling the world. But all of that was left behind when she chose to be a mother. She didn't regret it, but sometimes she wondered what her life would have been like if things had been different. There was no time for regrets, though. The clock kept ticking and she had to keep going. After all, Theodore needed her, and Erica was willing to do anything to ensure that he had a better future. That morning, everything seemed to be against Erica. The alarm didn't go off. Theodore spilled cereal on the small kitchen floor, and to make matters worse, the babysitter called to cancel at the last minute. "I'm so sorry, Erica, but my daughter got sick and I can't leave the house today." Erica's heart raced. What would she do now? Missing work wasn't an option. Her boss was already looking at her sideways for having to leave on time every day. Besides, the rent was late and losing her job would mean the end of everything. She looked at Theodore, who was playing absent-mindedly with a plastic toy car. He was just a child, but he could already tell when his mother was upset. "Is everything okay, Mommy?" he asked, his innocent eyes shining. Erica took a deep breath. She had no choice. "Come on, honey, you're going to work with me today." The Sterling Enterprises building was imposing, with glass walls that reflected the morning light. Erica held Theodore's hand as she walked past the reception desk, hoping no one would notice. "Stay close to me, honey. Don't make any noise, okay?" Theodore nodded with a mischievous little smile. She got on the elevator, praying that no one from the board would come up with her. Her plan was simple: hide Theodore under her desk and make him stay quiet until the end of the day. It wasn't ideal, but it was her only option. When she got to her office floor, Erica hurried to her desk and arranged a small pile of papers to hide it. "Theodore, honey, stay here and draw, okay? Mommy's going to work, and when she's done, we'll go get ice cream, okay?" "Deal," he said excitedly, grabbing a notebook and pencil from her bag. Everything seemed under control, until it wasn't. Erica was distracted by an important phone call, and when she turned to check on Theodore, he was gone. Her heart sank. "Theodore," she whispered, looking around. Nothing. Desperately, she walked through the office, trying to appear calm. She walked between the work cubicles, discreetly looking over the shoulders of her colleagues, and then she heard his small voice echoing through the long hallway. "Hi, Daddy?" The world stopped. Erica froze in place. A few feet away, Theodore was standing in front of John Sterling, the feared CEO of the company, a tall man with a cold gaze and an imposing posture. Everyone around him stopped what they were doing. John frowned, looking at the blonde boy who was holding a drawing in his hands. He had bright blue eyes, the same eyes John saw in the mirror every day. "Daddy?" John repeated, confused. Erica felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The entire office fell into an uncomfortable silence. All eyes were on John Sterling, the ruthless CEO, and little Theodore, who was watching him with the innocence of a child. John narrowed his eyes, analyzing the boy in front of him. There was something there that unsettled him. The boy didn't seem scared by his presence. On the contrary, he smiled confidently, as if he already knew him. But what really made her heart skip a beat was something undeniable. Theodore's eyes were identical to her own, a deep shade of blue, intense, almost hypnotizing. It was as if he were looking at a miniature version of himself. "What's it like?" John finally broke the silence, his voice deep and controlled. "Are you my daddy?" Theodore asked again, his little head slightly tilted, holding a colorful drawing in his hands. Erica felt her stomach churn. Her body went rigid and a lump formed in her throat. She needed to act fast. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling. He didn't mean it like that. It was just a misunderstanding." Her voice was shaky, but she tried to sound firm. John didn't take his eyes off Theodore. He studied every detail of the boy, the shape of his face, the delicate features, the color of his hair, and those eyes. "What's going on here, Carter?" His voice had a different tone now. It wasn't just irritation, there was something else. "Curiosity. I just had a problem with the babysitter today. Theodore had to come with me, but I'm already taking him back to my desk." Erica tried to pull her son away, but he dodged her. "Wait a minute." John took a step forward, making Erica hold her breath. "This boy." He crouched down, getting to Theodore's level. For the first time, his cold eyes showed something like hesitation. "What's your name, kid?" "Theodore." The boy smiled. "I drew you, look." Theodore held up a piece of paper to John, who took it without taking his eyes off it. It was a childish drawing, but clear enough to be recognized. A tall man in a suit next to a little boy. John felt a strange shiver run down his spine. He didn't believe in coincidences. Slowly he stood up, crossing his arms. His gaze turned to Erica, now dark and calculating. "We need to talk." Erica's heart raced. She knew this moment would come one day, but she never expected it to be like this. The silence that already dominated the office became even more intense when Theodore, without any hesitation, approached. John unwrapped his small arms around the man's waist. "Daddy!" The boy's sweet voice echoed through the room, leaving all the employees of Sterling Enterprises in shock. Erica felt the blood drain from her face. Her heart raced, and she froze in place. What she feared most was happening before her eyes. John, in turn, remained completely still. He was not a man accustomed to displays of affection, much less from a child that, until a few minutes ago, he had not even known existed. His cold gaze became even sharper, as if trying to unravel the mystery before him. The employees who had previously tried to concentrate on their work now could not take their eyes off the scene. Murmurs began to circulate around the room. Everyone knew that John Sterling was a reserved and ruthless man, and now here he was, being called Dad by a little boy with eyes identical to his own. John slowly looked down at Theodore, who was still hugging him fearlessly. He felt something strange, an unfamiliar sensation that was taking him out of control. "Theodore, honey, let go of Mr. Sterling now." Erica finally found the strength to speak, her voice thick with nervousness. "But Mommy, he's my daddy, isn't he?" Theodore asked innocently, looking at his mother and then at John. John's eyes narrowed. There was no more room for doubt now. Something was very wrong. He gently released himself from the boy's embrace and lifted his head, his expression hardening. As he stared at Erica, "Come into my office now." His voice was low but full of authority. Erica felt her legs weaken. She knew there was no way out. Holding Theodore's hand tightly, she took a deep breath and followed John to his office. What she had feared so much had finally caught up with her, and now there was no escape. As soon as the office door closed, John turned quickly, his gaze piercing Erica like a sharp blade. He was not a man to waste time, and what patience he had left was already exhausted. "Tell me the truth now, Erica." His voice was firm, almost cutting. "This boy, Theodore, is he my son?" Erica felt a lump tighten in her throat. She wanted to respond, but the words seemed to be stuck in the fear that was taking over her. "That's absurd, John." She tried to remain calm, crossing her arms in an attempt to hide the trembling of her hands. "You heard a 4-year-old talking nonsense and you're already jumping to conclusions." John narrowed his eyes. He walked slowly to his desk, resting his hands on the glass top. "Don't play with me, Erica." His eyes, "They're my eyes." He pointed toward Theodore, who was now absent-mindedly playing with a small toy car he'd brought in his backpack. "That's no coincidence. John, please." She tried to plead, her voice almost pleading. "I raised Theodore alone. I don't need anything from you. Let's just forget about this." "Forget?" John laughed, but there was no humor in his laughter. "Do you think I'm a fool? If there's even a chance he's my son, I'm going to find out the truth." Erica shivered. She knew John wasn't the kind of man who gave up easily. "I want a DNA test," he stated, his voice low and full of determination. "No." Erica answered immediately, crossing her arms firmly. John straightened, his posture becoming even more imposing. "Then I'm going to take legal action. I'm going to sue to get the legal right to demand that test. And when the results confirm what I already suspect, Erica, I'm going to want my son." Her eyes widened. "You can't do that." Her voice was a mix of anger and desperation. "I can and I will," John replied coldly. "If you have anything to hide, this is your last chance to tell the truth." Erica felt tears burning her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She couldn't let John rip Theodore out of her life. But now she was cornered, and she knew she couldn't run from the truth much longer. Erica's heart was pounding as she stared at John, who stood impassive in front of her, demanding answers. Her mind began to travel back in time, taking her back to a night that would change her life forever. 5 years ago. The Sterling Enterprises Grand Gala was in full swing. The luxurious ballroom was filled with influential people, all dressed in their finest attire. Erica, at the time a young college student full of dreams, was there only by luck. Her best friend, who worked as the event planner, had managed to get her a last-minute invitation. It was a different world from her own. Everything seemed too shiny, too sophisticated. But that night, she wanted to forget about her problems and just live a little. That's when she saw him, John Sterling. He wasn't just the most powerful man in the room, he was also the most attractive, tall, in an impeccable suit, with a piercing gaze and an air of mystery that made him irresistible. Erica didn't know if it was fate or just a whim of chance, but at some point during the evening their eyes met, and he moved closer. "You look out of place," he commented, holding out a glass of champagne and offering her a curious smile. Erica laughed, shaking her head. "Because I am. I think it's too obvious." "In a way," he admitted, tilting his head slightly, "but I like it. Genuine people are rare here." What started as a casual conversation soon turned into something more intense. There was an undeniable chemistry between them. John was not only charming, but also attentive, interested in her in a way no one else had ever been. He made her laugh, made her feel special. The minutes turned into hours, and before Erica knew it, they had both quietly left the party. They went to his penthouse, a luxurious apartment that looked like something out of a movie. The world outside didn't exist. That night, Erica gave herself completely to herself. For the first time in a long time, she didn't think about the future, her fears or the consequences. She just lived in the moment. But the fairy tale didn't last long. The next morning when she woke up, the bed next to her was empty. No note, no explanation, nothing but silence and the overwhelming feeling of having been just another person in his life. A few days later, Erica discovered she was pregnant. She tried to contact him, but she never got past the assistants and secretaries who shielded John from any outside contact. Eventually, she got the message. He didn't want to know. And so, She moved on. She raised Theodore alone, never looking back, until now. Back in the present, Erica blinked, coming back to reality. John was still there, looking at her, waiting for an answer. But how could she tell the truth to someone who abandoned her without even looking back? In the days that followed, John didn't back away. Instead, he intensified his investigation, determined to find out the truth about Theodore. The coldness he had shown in business meetings now turned to Erica, and she could feel it in every look, every word exchanged. He was no longer just questioning Theodore's paternity. He was determined to unearth all the secrets she was trying to hide. Erica knew she was lost. It wasn't just John's discerning gaze that made her feel vulnerable. He had resources, and she couldn't escape his reach. When he started asking questions about her past, about her life before Theodore, she tried to avoid him. But John wouldn't give up. He wanted to know everything. "I'm going after the truth, Erica. There's no point in trying to hide anything," he said, sitting across from her in his office, his voice relentless as if he were controlling the game. She tried to remain calm, but memories of a painful time began to invade her mind. How could she tell him everything she had done to survive, to raise Theodore alone, without relying on anyone's support, especially him? It didn't take long for John to discover that Erica had dropped out of college right after she got pregnant. Her scholarships, her career plans, everything was left behind. She had to give up on her dreams, as if her life had been abruptly cut short. All of this because John, the man she thought was a passing romance, disappeared from her life at the moment she needed support the most. And now he was in front of her, pressing her, trying to understand why she hadn't told him the truth. Erica tried to push her thoughts away, but it was impossible not to relive the days of loneliness and the nights when she wondered why he had left her. The pain was still fresh, even after so many years. "You dropped out of college, Erica?" John asked, his voice softer now but still full of disbelief. "And you didn't tell me any of this?" She tried to hide it, to look away, but she couldn't. It was a burden she had carried alone for so long, a burden that, for the first time, seemed about to be shared. "I was 22, John," she answered, her voice shaking. "I was lost, scared, and didn't know what to do. I was rejected. You left me alone that night, and I didn't know how to deal with it all." John looked at her, his stern expression giving way to a flicker of understanding. He realized that there was much more behind her decision than he had imagined. It wasn't just about a mistake from the past or a failure in her life. It was about survival, about choosing between her dreams and the future of a child. "I didn't know, Erica," he murmured, finally surrendering to the complexity of the situation. "I only knew what I saw in you that night, but I didn't imagine everything you had to go through." For a moment, the atmosphere around them seemed to calm down, but the tension still hung in the air. John was beginning to realize that perhaps he didn't know everything about the woman he had spent one night with. And more than that, he was beginning to see the gaps in his own responsibility. But the truth he had been searching for so long was still far away, and the battle between them was far from over. Erica felt a heavier weight on her shoulders, but there was also something else, something she didn't yet fully understand. The fight for the truth now involved not only the past, but also Theodore's future. The next few days were marked by increasing tension between John and Erica. Each meeting seemed more difficult than the last, and John's pressure was becoming unbearable. He wasn't going to back down until he found out the truth about Theodore, and Erica knew it for sure. In one of the most tense meetings, while they were in the Sterling Enterprises boardroom, John issued the threat that Erica had been dreading, but knew was coming. "Erica," he said with an almost frightening calm, "there's no way around it anymore. I'm going to get a DNA test. I need to know the truth about Theodore, and so do you." Erica felt a chill run down her spine. The mere mention of the DNA test made her stomach churn. She knew the implications of it, knew that if it was proven that Theodore was John's son, she could lose custody of him. He had the resources to win any legal battle. She would lose her son to this powerful man, someone Theodore barely knew. "No," Erica replied, her voice cracking but firm. "I won't let you do that." John arched an eyebrow, surprised by her refusal. He was used to being in control in every situation, and Erica, a woman with whom he shared such a complicated past, was resisting. He stood up from his chair, walking toward her with long strides. "You don't have a choice, Erica," he said, the coldness in his voice making it clear what was at stake. "I'm going to take the test and you can't stop me. I'm not speaking as just another man anymore. I'm speaking as Theodore's father, and I have a right to know the truth." Erica took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. Her heart was pounding, and she felt the pressure building with each word. She looked at John, trying to find a way to reach a compromise, but she knew he wouldn't budge. "If you take this test," she began, her voice now lower, "it will mean that you will take my son away from me. I will not allow that to happen. Theodore needs me, and I am the only person who has always been there for him." Frustration was growing in John's eyes. He was not about to listen to excuses or justifications. He wanted answers, and he knew that the DNA test would be the only way to get them. He believed that this was not only a matter of paternity, but also of justice. He had the right to be there for Theodore, to be a father to him, if he was indeed the biological father. But somewhere a small doubt was creeping into his heart. "I understand how you feel, Erica," John said, his voice a little softer but still resolute. "But I can't keep ignoring the possibility that Theodore is my son. He has my eyes, Erica. I can't just turn my back on him." Erica, however, couldn't see past the threat of losing her son. She fought tooth and nail to protect Theodore no matter what. She knew what it would be like to lose custody of him. She knew how much it would destroy Theodore's life and her own. The mere thought of it made her tremble with fear. "I understand what you want, John, but what you don't understand is what you're doing to my son. He doesn't need more trouble. He needs stability, he needs love, and I'm the only person who can give him that." John stared at her silently for a moment. There was something in her words that touched him. He had never considered the emotional toll this test would take on Theodore, but now, hearing the pain in Erica's voice, he realized that his actions might be doing more harm than good. But his need to know the truth was overwhelming. He couldn't simply ignore the suspicions that plagued him. He needed an answer, but at that moment, he didn't know what the next step to take would be. "I won't give up, Erica," he said finally, his voice full of determination. "I know you're trying to protect Theodore, but the truth can't be ignored. I'm going to take this test, and when I do, everything will be revealed." Erica was silent, her eyes filled with tears, but with a quiet strength. She knew that the battle was just beginning, and that in the end, she would have to fight with all her might to keep what she loved most in the world. As the days passed, the tension between Erica and John began to dissipate, although there was still a cloud of uncertainty hanging over them both. But something unexpected was happening. Theodore and John, in an almost magical way, were beginning to form a genuine bond. The little boy, with his bright eyes and sincere smile, kept calling, "John, Dad," as if it were the most natural name in the world. It was a simple but meaningful moment. During a company lunch, Theodore, with his childlike spontaneity, approached John, still holding hands with Erica. Theodore's eyes lit up when he saw John. He ran to him and, with his arms open, said, "Dad, give me a hug." John looked at the boy, surprised and at the same time touched. He hesitated for a second, as if trying to process the depth of the situation. Then, without thinking, he bent down, wrapped Theodore in his arms, and pressed him against his chest. It was a simple but genuine hug, and the expression on John's face, until then marked by controlled indifference, began to soften. Theodore, in his innocence, did not know the weight that those words carried. He didn't fully understand the complexities of adulthood, the issues of fatherhood, and the struggles surrounding his future. But what he did know was that John was there, present in his life, and that was enough for him. He saw him as a father, as someone who cared for him, who listened to him, and who made him feel safe. Meanwhile, Erica watched the scene from afar, her heart torn. She couldn't deny the connection that was forming between John and Theodore. She saw how the boy beamed every time he was around John, and how John, even with his imperturbable demeanor, seemed to melt in the face of Theodore's sweetness. But at the same time, Erica felt a growing discomfort within herself. She didn't know if she could allow this relationship to deepen so much, given the emotional turmoil it could cause Theodore, and how much it would put her own bond with her son at risk. Can he really be a good father to Theodore? Erica thought as she looked at the two of them. She knew that despite John's imposing facade, he had never shown any interest in fatherhood until that moment. It was hard for her to imagine someone so focused on power and money being able to give his son the attention and love he needed. She knew John had a complicated past and a cold nature, but at the same time, she saw something she couldn't ignore: a human side, a vulnerability, a desire to be a part of Theodore's life. "Do you see what's going on between them?" A friend of Erica's, who also worked at the company, asked in a cautious tone. "It seems like Theodore really likes him." Erica sighed, feeling a mix of conflicting emotions. "Yeah, but I still don't know what to think. I don't want him to get hurt, no matter what. I'm the only mother he's ever known." The friend tried to comfort her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Erica, you're doing what you think is best for him, but you also have to realize that John, he might be the only person Theodore really needs. And maybe instead of fighting it, you should make room for what might happen. It can't be that bad if John gets involved in his life. After all, you're seeing what's happening here. It's happening naturally." Those words, while comforting, were also leaving Erica with a heavy heart. She knew that somehow this bond between John and Theodore was becoming inevitable. Theodore already saw him as a father, and that was something that couldn't be erased easily. As Theodore and John continued to spend more time together, Erica couldn't help but wonder, could John be the father Theodore needed? She wondered if John's ability to care for his son was genuine, or if he was just being driven by obligation. But as much as she tried to resist, she began to see something in John that she had never imagined. Maybe it was possible after so many years to leave the past behind and build something new, something healthier, more balanced for Theodore. The question she asked herself every night before going to sleep seemed to have no answer. But one thing was certain: the relationship between John and Theodore was growing, and Erica knew she could no longer ignore the connection between them. She was beginning to doubt her own certainty, beginning to believe that maybe she had been wrong in trying to keep John away. Maybe, just maybe, he was the father Theodore needed. The morning began like any other, with Erica racing against time to organize Theodore's routine and get ready for work. But something was strange. Theodore, who was usually full of energy and curiosity, was pale and weak. He complained of a stomachache and a feeling of malaise. Erica, worried, tried to calm him down, but the little 4-year-old boy was visibly uncomfortable, refusing even breakfast. "Theodore, what's wrong, son?" "You're making me worried," Erica said, placing her hand on the boy's forehead. He was hot, with a high fever, and this only increased Erica's anguish. Wasting no time, Erica decided to take him to the hospital. She knew she couldn't wait. Theodore was getting weaker and weaker, and she felt that something was very wrong. But as always, there was an obstacle. Erica didn't have a car, and public transportation would take too long for an emergency like this. She began to think of the possibilities, desperate. It was then that John suddenly appeared in her path. He had just left an important meeting at the company, and seeing Erica anxious, he asked, concerned, "Erica, what happened? Why are you so agitated?" "It's Theodore. He's really bad. I need to take him to the hospital now, but I don't know how—" Erica stammered, her voice choked with worry. John didn't hesitate. Without question, he grabbed his car keys and said, "I'll take them. Let's go now." Erica looked at him, still surprised by how quickly he had made the decision. But the look in John's eyes was not that of an imposing CEO or a cold man like she knew. There was something else there, a genuine concern and a desire to help. Without another word, she picked Theodore up in her arms and ran to John's car. During the drive to the hospital, the silence between them was heavy. Erica tried to focus on keeping Theodore comfortable while he snuggled in her arms, his eyes already half closed due to the fever. John drove with an unusual calm, his gaze fixed on the road, but his thoughts clearly returning to that child who was beginning to be a part of his life. He didn't know what had happened between Erica and Theodore, but now, more than ever, he felt the need to protect them, and perhaps in a strange way, he was beginning to feel that Theodore really was his son, despite all the doubts that still hung over him. When they arrived at the hospital, the doctor greeted them urgently. Theodore was taken to the emergency room immediately, and Erica stayed in the waiting room trying to stay calm. But inside, she was broken. "Will my son be okay?" she wondered, unable to stop staring at the emergency room door. And it was at that moment, as she sat on the hard chair in the waiting room, that John approached. He was there, quiet, but his presence did not go unnoticed. He had followed Erica into the room, still without saying a word. He was there, beside her, perhaps more concerned than she realized. "Erica," John began, his voice soft. "He's going to be okay. I know it sounds scary, but he'll pull through." Erica looked at him, her voice cracking with emotion. "I don't know what to do, John. He's so weak. I feel like I'm losing him." John crouched down beside her, his expression serious and for the first time open. "Erica, he's strong, and so are you. Theodore has you, and you have him. We're not going to let this get us down." That was when, for the first time, Erica noticed something different about John. The man she had always thought of as distant and focused solely on his career was there, showing a humanity she never imagined he had. He was worried, but he was also there for her and for Theodore. He was showing her something she didn't even know he was capable of. He was being a father, and that was something she never thought she would see. They stood there together, waiting for the doctor to arrive. When the doctor finally came out of the emergency room, he smiled and confirmed that Theodore was stable and that the tests indicated an infection that, although serious, was treatable. Erica sighed in relief, but she couldn't help but feel the weight of emotion. She looked at John, and he was beside her, his eyes fixed on Theodore, who was still asleep, but now with his fever breaking. "Thank you, John," she said, her voice low but full of gratitude. "I don't know what I would have done without you today." John smiled slightly, but the softness in his smile was something genuine, something she had never seen before. "No need to thank me, Erica. I'm here. I always will be." The night passed slowly, but for Erica, it was the first time she truly felt that perhaps John could be the man Theodore needed. Maybe not just as a friend, but as a real father. Erica and Theodore's life seemed to finally have found a balance. After all the moments of tension and uncertainty, something good was beginning to blossom. John was increasingly present, showing Erica that despite all the hardships they had faced, he was willing to be the man she and Theodore needed. But the peace, however brief, was about to be interrupted in a way no one could have foreseen. One night, while Erica was cooking dinner and Theodore was playing in his little bed, John's phone rang. He looked at the screen and saw the name of an old acquaintance, Victor Lancaster, a name he preferred to keep buried in the past, but now, for some unknown reason, was about to resurface. "Victor, what does he want?" John muttered to himself, already sensing that something bad was about to happen. When he answered, Victor Lancaster's cold voice came on the other end of the line. "John, you have what is mine, and now it's time for you to pay." Before John could respond, the call was cut off, but the threat was clear. Victor Lancaster, John's old rival in business and in life, had something John held dearest: his son. "Theodore!" Erica screamed, hearing the panic in John's voice. She ran to him, finding him motionless, his face pale. He took Theodore, Erica. "Victor. He took Theodore. He's with him somewhere. I need to find my son." "We need to do it now," John said, the tension in his face turning into an anger he had never shown before. Erica, stunned, was speechless for a moment. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. Theodore, the boy she had promised to protect with all her soul, was in danger, and all seemed lost. But when she looked at John, she saw something new. He wasn't just worried, he was determined. "We're going to get him back." "Together," Erica said, her voice shaking but full of determination. "We won't let him get away with this." John nodded, his eyes more serious than ever. He knew what Victor was capable of. He was a man without scruples, obsessed with revenge. But now it was clearer than ever. He would do anything to protect Theodore, even if it meant facing his own past. They wasted no time. John started calling old-school contacts, those he had connections with in the underworld. But at the same time, Erica's mind was racing. thinking about every detail, every possible clue that could lead to Theodore. She didn't know how, but she needed answers. The idea of being without her son was an unbearable pain. Hours passed, and the clues began to emerge. Theodore's whereabouts was still a mystery, but John and Erica were closer than ever. It was no longer just a matter of finding the boy, but of making sure he was safe, that the nightmare would end. Finally, with the help of a trusted network of contacts, they located Victor's hideout, a deserted warehouse on the edge of town. There was no time to waste. Erica looked at John, her heart racing, but she knew there was no turning back. Whatever happened, they had to be quick and careful. Come on now, and remember, we're not just going after Theodore. We're going after our family, Erica said, her voice firm. John gave her a slight smile, a smile that for the first time showed vulnerability. Yes, Erica, I'm going to get him back. Tension hung in the air as John and Erica approached the deserted warehouse where Victor Lancaster had held Theodore hostage. The two stood side by side, breathing hard, but with unwavering determination. Erica, her heart heavy, knew that nothing in the world could prepare them for what they would find inside. But one thing was clear: they would do everything to rescue Theodore, no matter the cost. John looked at her, his expression hard, but with a slight glimmer of hope in his eyes. "We'll get him back, Erica," he said, his voice firm. "Nothing will stop us." Erica nodded, squeezing her hand tightly. "Nothing," she repeated. Inside the warehouse, the air was heavy and stuffy. The sound of their rapid breathing echoed as they advanced cautiously, their eyes alert to every move. John led the way, his posture confident and ready to act at any moment. Erica, further back, remained alert, knowing that they were not alone, and that Victor would waste no time in trying to prevent the rescue. Suddenly they heard a sound, a cold laugh full of contempt that made their hearts freeze. Victor was there waiting for them, a smile of triumph on his face. "So you finally come," he said, his eyes shining with mischief. "But are you ready for the price you'll have to pay for daring to enter my territory?" John, with a coldness that only love for Theodore could provide, stepped forward. "Where is my son, Victor? Release him now or you won't leave here standing." Victor laughed, a dark laugh. "I won't do that, John. Not after everything that's happened. What I want is to see you suffer." At that moment, Erica saw Theodore tied up in a corner, his eyes frightened but at the same time hopeful when he saw John. He looked weak, but there was something in the brightness of his eyes that said he knew. Salvation was near. "Theodore, I'm here," Erica shouted, running to the boy. But before she could reach her son, the sound of a gunshot echoed through the room. John, who was in front to protect everyone, took the impact of a shot in the shoulder. The cry of pain that escaped his lips was muffled by the sound of the gunshot. He bent over slightly, but remained standing, his face contorted in pain. Blood began to stain his shirt, but his eyes did not leave Theodore, who was desperately trying to free himself from the ropes that held him. "No, John," Erica shouted, running to him, but he raised his hand, signaling her not to come closer yet. "Erica, stay calm." "He's not going to get away now," John said with difficulty, his words broken by the pain. But the determination in his voice was unmistakable. He turned slowly, staring at Victor with a fierce look. "You're not going to stop me, Victor. I'm going to get my son back, and nothing's going to change that." Victor laughed, thinking he had control, but the hatred in his eyes only grew when he realized that John was still standing despite the wound. "Do you think you're going to get away with this? With what you've done? With what you've lost?" "I'm going to get away with this," John replied, his voice full of determination. "I'm going to get away with my son." He then took a step forward, despite the growing pain, and advanced towards Theodore. But when Victor tried to shoot again, John jumped in front of Theodore, catching the bullet with his body and falling to his knees, but still keeping his eyes firmly on the boy's face. "Daddy!" Theodore cried out, desperate, tears streaming down his face. Erica ran to them, kneeling beside John, and immediately began to press one hand against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "John, no!" she cried, but her voice was still full of urgency and love. John looked at Theodore, his eyes filled with pain, but also with a strength that Erica had never imagined she would see. "Theodore, my son, look at me," he said, with difficulty. "I promise I will never leave you again. Never again. I will protect you. I will take care of you. You are my life, my everything." Theodore, even without fully understanding what was happening, grabbed John's hand with all the strength his small body could muster, as if he knew his father was fighting for him. "I knew it, Daddy. I knew you wouldn't leave me." Those words, so simple yet so full of meaning, gave John a strength he didn't even know he had. He looked at Erica, her eyes wet with pain but also with relief. She watched him with a mixture of fear and unconditional love. "I won't leave you. No matter what happens, I won't leave you." "I'm your father," John said, his voice full of emotion. Erica, breathing heavily, nodded, her hand still pressing on John's wound. She knew he was hurt, but she also knew that John, with his strength, had rescued Theodore. Not just his body, but his soul, his hope. He had shown, in that moment, that he was more than the cold and distant businessman. He was a father. Victor, seeing John's determination and the unconditional love between him and Theodore, realized he had lost. He tried to make one last move, but the authorities were already arriving, alerted by Erica's call and the traces they had left. When the police arrived, Victor was quickly subdued and arrested, but at that moment what mattered was not revenge or justice. What mattered was that John had kept his promise. Theodore was safe, and together they could finally begin to rebuild their lives. John, with his arm bleeding, looked at Erica and Theodore. He took a deep breath, and with a voice full of sincerity said, "The fight is over, and now we will live together as a real family." After the rescue, the following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions, but also of discoveries. John began to dedicate himself more and more to his family, leaving aside business meetings, conferences, and million-dollar contracts. He was ready to live a different life, a life with Erica and Theodore, far from his old fears and the pressures that had consumed him for so long. One afternoon, as the sun set over the city, turning the sky a soft orange, John and Erica stood in their backyard, watching Theodore play with his dog. The scene was peaceful, but the silence between them was filled with a tension they both felt, but didn't know how to break. John looked at Erica, his gaze softer now, but still deep. "Erica," he began, his voice deeper than usual. She turned, noticing the seriousness in his gaze. "There's something I need to tell you, something I've never had the courage to say until now." She frowned, her heart starting to beat faster. "What happened, John?" He took a deep breath, as if preparing to reveal the most intimate of his feelings. "I ran away from you in the past. I ran away from both of us, and I ran away from what I felt for you. The fear of losing control, of letting myself get involved, made me run. But now I know. I know that what really matters is being with you and with Theodore. I love you, Erica. I love you in a way that I can't explain, but in a way that I know is true. And most of all, I love our son, Theodore. He's the reason I want to change everything. I want to be the man and the father that he needs." Erica looked at him, surprised and touched by John's words. The man she had known so many years ago, the one who had seemed cold and distant, was now standing before her with a sincerity that made her melt. The words she had most feared to hear, but also most wanted to hear, were finally there. "John," she began, her voice shaking, "are you really saying that? That you want to be with us? Who wants to be our father, Theodore's father, forever?" John came closer, holding her hands, looking into her eyes with the intensity of someone who has finally found the truth. "Yes, I want to start a family with you. I want to be a real father to Theodore and a partner to you. There is nothing more important to me than that. I have been so blind for so long, but now I see that happiness does not come from money or power. It comes from us, from family. It comes from being together." John's words touched Erica's heart deeply. She felt the weight of everything they had lived through, the hardships, the struggles, and now the promise of something new, something she had never imagined possible. She no longer needed answers. She already knew what she wanted. "John, I love you too," she said, her eyes shining with emotion. "I have loved you since the moment I first saw you at that gala. I knew there was something between us, but I was afraid. Afraid of not being what you wanted. Afraid of being rejected. But now, I'm not afraid. I want to live this with you. I want us to be a family." With a soft smile, John took something out of his jacket pocket, a small velvet box. He opened it, revealing an engagement ring, simple but with a beauty that reflected everything he felt. "Erica Carter, you and Theodore are everything to me. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me? I want to be your husband and be Theodore's father, forever." Erica looked at the ring, then at John, her heart pounding. She never imagined this day would come, but at the same time she felt like it was the right time. She felt safe, loved, and finally at peace. "Yes, John, I do. I do accept being your wife, and I do accept that we are a family. Forever," she replied with a radiant smile. And at that moment, under the soft evening light, John placed the ring on Erica's finger, sealing a new promise. A promise of love, of change, of a new life full of possibilities. They embraced, and from a distance Theodore looked at them both, smiling, not fully understanding what was happening, but feeling the happiness in the air, in the way his parents were together, finally united. The following months were a true transformation in John's life. He left the business world behind, choosing to focus on community projects and improving the lives of those around him. He knew that by doing so, he was becoming the man he was always meant to be, the man his family deserved, Theodore's father, Erica's husband, and together they built the life they had always wanted, a life based on love, respect, and unity. The hardships of the past were behind them, and now the future was full of promise and dreams come true. The true wealth that John discovered was not in material possessions, but in the love he shared with Erica and Theodore. They were his true inheritance, and he knew with all certainty that now he had everything that really mattered. This story is very moving. If you liked it, leave your like, subscribe to our channel, and activate the notification bell. By doing so, you will continue to receive perfect stories like this one.